What we want to do is extend the healthy quality time that we have, which is our health span. We want to maximize those years as long as we possibly can, so that the end of our health span most closely lines up with the end of our lifespan as well, so that there's not very many years of actual suffering involved.
Which sounds like the perfect philosophy with our beloved dogs. Hello everybody, welcome to this very exciting fireside chat. Hopefully the start of just a much bigger conversation, but like anything, you always got to start somewhere, and that's where we are today. So this conversation is really driven by this core belief that dogs just deserve the best that we can give them. So throughout the course of this conversation, we're going to be talking about, where we've been, where we're going, and what's quietly evolving behind the scenes of pet health, longevity, and emotional care. I'm a dog lover, forever dog parent, even though I crossed the rainbow bridge, forever dog parent. I'm not a licensed credential expert in the field. However, luckily, I do have somebody here that is, and can shed some light in a way that I couldn't, but it's going to really just open up this conversation so that we can really normalize what it is to be a dog parent and what measures we can take to be better dog parents. So it's my great pleasure to be joined by the incredible Dr. Heather Oxford. Thank you.
Oh, that's sweet, John. Thank you so much for the beautiful introduction. I'm so happy to be here talking to you about this.
And can I fanboy for a moment? Because I legitimately have been a fan of yours and followed you on Instagram for probably, it's been a few years now.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Oh, wow. I'm so honored.
So the honor is a lot of it. And I'm not, we can share the honor. I'm not trying to take possessory claim to any honor here. But I remember following you on Instagram, and this is when I was beginning my journey as a dog parent with my beloved Shelby, who we're going to talk about in a little bit. And I just loved your approach to everything because I just found you to be someone who has the correct mindset. I don't want to say correct, but this mindset that I really admire of not having to be either or. It's about just what's the best path. And that best path can always vary depending on a situation. And I always really admire philosophies like that. Real quick, could we talk about some of your credentials and what your background is and what you're primarily known for in the dog care industry?
Sure. So I'm primarily known for my work in rehab in dogs. So I'm a mobile rehab vet. I have clientele all around LA, and I go into the homes and I treat their pets. Usually for, chronic issues like arthritis and neurodegenerative type conditions. And so I utilize acupuncture and rehabilitative medicine to do that. So before I became a vet, I got my master's in public health, and that was in epidemiology. I worked at Centers for Disease Control, went to vet school, went through a 1-year rotating small animal internship in LA after graduation. So I got really kind of thrown into all of these different specialties that are available for vet medicine through that internship. Then I actually worked as a general practitioner of vet medicine in West LA for a couple years. Then I got my credentials for veterinary acupuncture and also canine rehabilitation. And started doing just rehab for a few years. And then most recently, I got my certification with the American Board of Anti-Aging Health Practitioners.
Which I want to touch on that really quick. There's a couple of things I want to circle back to, but that right there is really important because people hear that and it sounds very impressive, which it is. But can we touch on what a big deal that is for you as being the first veterinarian to get that credential? Because for a long time, that organization has been in existence. And for you to be the one to crack through, that's a big thing. Can we touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I started getting involved in, longevity medicine, and then I started seeking out where I could get some kind of accreditation, or where I could get like a legitimate education in it, because it's not offered in veterinary medicine. And so I found the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. They actually don't particularly offer it to veterinarians. It's offered to, doctors, nurses, osteopaths, like every, acupuncturist, every human practitioner, but still they do not list veterinarians. So, yeah, I'm the first. I think there may be a couple other vets now that have the certification, but it's a really, uh, it's a really intriguing institution. It's where you can learn about functional medicine. And so functional medicine is this whole branch of science where you're focused more on the patient and getting to the root of the problem. And that's always what I wanted to do. And it kind of circles back to my beginnings as an epidemiologist, where I really, it got really drilled into me that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And I feel like, yes, Western medicine, conventional medicine, there are a lot of preventive strategies that we utilize to protect health, but it's really, the medical model is really a disease-focused model, which inherently you're delayed in treatment. And so I wanted to get ahead of that, do more preventative stuff, and longevity medicine is where that is.
Thank you for all the information. That's so important to know. And because the A4M was founded, I did some light research here, 1993. So that's 30 plus years before someone like yourself would enter the chat and open it up to veterinary medicine. And circling back, I'm really glad you brought up your Western medicine background, because someone may hear rehab, acupuncturist, and they think that you're dismissing the history and the credibility of Western medicine, which obviously you're not doing, because you went to school for that. You did study for that.
Correct.
You are credentialed, and you do have a foundation in that.
Yes.
But you're not by any means rigidly bound by that.
Exactly. Yeah. I would not want to live in a world without conventional medicine.
Yes.
There are so many advances compared to a couple hundred years ago. But I also would not want to live in a world without an integrative approach with adjunctive modalities to add to that, because there are various conditions where conventional means are limited. So this just opens the door for more opportunities and different ways to prevent and diagnose and treat several more conditions.
And if I'm not mistaken, epidemiology parlays perfectly into that, because that really is about, I guess I would say, treating the cause as opposed to the symptom, which we have a tendency to do. It's like, I have a headache. Okay, let's treat the headache. It's like, well, what's causing the headache?
Yeah.
Because then maybe if you know the cause of the headache,
right,
prevent the headache from happening again, so you're not having to treat the symptom over and over. Am I onto something?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, you get ahead of it, right? So with conventional medicine, we're trained to, we're very good diagnosticians. We're very good at interpreting lab work. We're very good at interpreting ultrasounds, radiology, but we're not as good at interpreting those vague, milder symptoms that may predate any laboratory changes. And if we could get better at interpreting those early onset mild symptoms that are just maybe something's not quite right, kind of vague things that we don't have anything in a textbook about. If we get better about that, we could get better at seeking and finding the root of the issue before it develops into a tissue specific or organ specific or organism level of disease.
Yeah, so we gotta, you're talking about textbooks and all piggyback on that in terms of using like a book metaphor. The book is what it is, and there's validity in it, but we can always write new chapters.
Yeah.
Which is essentially what you're doing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
With you now being accredited with the A4M, that's a new chapter of the 30 plus year history. And I think we should always take it upon ourselves to know that we are the architects, we are the ones with the paintbrush, we are the ones that are behind the typewriter. And that's why I really just admire what you do, because you understand what your skill sets are, what your credentials are, but you're also always keep it in mind. There's always another level. There's always another advancement. And we do this for human care. We've seen really incredible things being done on the human side, anti-aging, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if it's anti-aging because I think we should be pro-aging. I think it's a privilege if we get to get older in age.
Yes.
It's just healthier aging and healthspan, right?
Yeah, supportive aging.
Yes.
Longevity medicine. So looking at improving our patients and ourselves' health span as opposed to just focusing on lifespan, because you could live to 99, but if the last 19 years of your life you're spending it debilitated or in chronic pain, I don't think that's a life that many of us would choose. So I would, what we want to do is extend the healthy quality time that we have, which is our health span. We want to maximize those years as long as we possibly can, so that the end of our health span most closely lines up with the end of our lifespan as well, so that there's not very many years of actual suffering involved.
Which sounds like the perfect philosophy with our beloved dogs. As dog parents, we know that there's going to be a finite amount of time for anybody, but it's especially known with dogs. But if we can really maximize that space, so that if however many years you get, that those years were all just completely fulfilled,
right,
to the best of the abilities. And that is kind of the exciting thing about where we're headed and what I've seen, just as somebody who like I said, forever a dog parent. You never not a dog parent. It just becomes in different forms. But that's where we're headed in it. And I want to get there, but really quick, I just want to ask you a question. Was there did you have an aha moment at any point in your life where you knew that this is the field of work you're in? Because when I see what you do, it makes so much sense that you are who you are. You do what you do. But can you walk me back to a point where you knew that this path of veterinary medicine, epidemiology, all this stuff was essentially going to be, for lack of a better term, your purpose?
Well, I knew from the time I was 2 years old I wanted to be a vet.
Okay.
So I never really had that aha moment. It was just always in me, that I knew this is what I wanted to do. And I became very passionate also about epidemiology. So I didn't know exactly how I was going to intertwine those two. I never lost the passion for veterinary medicine, but when I didn't get into vet school the first attempt, I immediately went to plan B and got my MPH. And then that set me up to get into vet school in my second try. And then, it was a little bit difficult working in conventional medicine, integrating my epidemiology. I didn't really have a good fit for that, actually. And it wasn't until I started on the sliding scale of gathering all of these other adjunctive tools like acupuncture and rehab, and then going into longevity medicine. It was when I started researching anti-aging medicine after hearing David Sinclair speak, that I really became completely impassioned about longevity medicine. And that was the main aha moment for me, where I was, I just thought, wow, this is where it is. This is where epidemiology is. This is where all the years of cell bio and molecular bio and organic chemistry, biochemistry, everything I've studied in school, it all culminates here in longevity medicine. So that's when I really felt like this is it. This is what I'm supposed to be doing.
So thank you for sharing all that. What I'm hearing is you knew ultimately what path you want to be on. And I love that even though you hit a roadblock, you didn't get into veterinary school. Okay, well, it's just like if you're taking a road trip. Maybe this road is closed. There's going to be other ways to get to your destination. Now, you may have to go on an unconventional path or maybe a Turk country road, whatever. But and that's what you did. You weren't letting these roadblocks be your barriers. Like, okay, that's just one obstacle. But there's more than one way to get to the top of Everest. There's more than one way to get to your destination. And that's what you did. And then along the way, which is the beautiful thing, is you found what specifically on this broad purpose that you knew since 2 years old was going to be. And I think that's so inspirational. And I think that's,
Thank you.
because it's true, and I feel like I should highlight that. I don't know. I would imagine people that have gotten to know you and as I've gotten to know you in this short amount of time, and hopefully we'll have many more years to get to know each other. But, I would imagine that I can't be the first person to point that out. And if I am, then I am. But,
No, yeah, I think even it was clear to me at that point that even the boards of vet schools had noticed that, because on my second attempt, I actually had my choice of 5 vet schools that I got into. So and that's how I've always approached life. If I know I need to do something or need to figure something out, there are barriers, and you just have to figure out ways to get around. So.
Yeah, it's again, we talked about Western medicine being the foundation. I think just that's a great metaphor for life in a way of have your foundation, but there's infinite amounts of paths you can take as long as that passion is there, which clearly it was.
Mm-hmm.
If veterinary school was off the table and then you said, okay, that's it, then that would answer the question of whether you were passionate about it or not. But clearly you were.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Right.
And we're talking about it.
Yeah.
And the reason I want to ask that is, one, I was just curious, is you've gotten to know me. I'm a very curious person, which is why we run the risk of maybe running a 4-hour chat. But I don't think we'll do that today. Maybe really not. I just stay tuned. You never know. One thing I really want to touch on, because I want people to get to know you as a person outside your credentials, which we touched on now. Another thing I want to talk about in the broad sense, and we could talk specifically about your experiences, this human side of veterinary care I want to talk about. Because I'm going to share a personal story about my dog Shelby, who is, up on the screen. Shelby Girl Productions, named in honor of her. We fought really hard against her congenital kidney condition, and I took every corrective measure possible. I at one point I had 5 or 6 different veterinarians I was talking to, because specialists and holistic vet. Shout out to again, Dr. Dufay at UC Davis. I had Dr. Magda at Holistica.
Yeah.
I had Dr. Mike McClanahan, our primary vet, and multiple other people I was talking to, and Dr. Ginny from Leap Years, which we're going to get into Leap Years later. And, I'm going to go to, which is clearly going to be the hardest day I'll ever have to deal with, which is when she unfortunately crossed the Rainbow Bridge after a year and a half. I want to say we got an extra year and a half when we probably shouldn't have, given when we found out at 4 years old she had this condition.
Yeah.
So I do like to look at it now as like she got a bonus life.
That's right. That's right. It's a great perspective to have.
Yes.
Bonus time.
And then when she went, obviously I'm gutted. I'm trying to process this emotional, these impossible emotions, and hoping this is just some nightmare I can wake up from. And reality starts to seep in. And I can't see straight because I've been crying the whole time. But then I look up, and the entire veterinary staff at True Care, they're all in tears too.
Yeah.
And then it just hit me. I said, oh my God, I'm dealing with this now. But veterinarians had to deal with this. And I'm getting emotional talking about it all the time, every day, multiple times a day.
Yeah.
And what I want to touch on was compassion fatigue, because there's a lot of literature on it. And if you'd be so kind, if you could shed some light on it from your perspective, because I don't know if a lot of people think of it in that sense. We know what pain we're feeling.
Yeah.
But you being, especially if you're somebody's primary care vet, and you were doing everything you can with your knowledge and your power to try to prevent the unthinkable being possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The thing is, compassion fatigue is it is real, and it's a real problem in veterinary medicine, and it's one of the reasons why we are one of the highest suicide rates per profession, and that's striking younger vets too, and so it's really a scary issue. There's, unfortunately, at least when I went through veterinary school, there wasn't any formal training in how to deal with that. How to, we weren't really trained to look at mental health for ourselves, really. So it's all just on the job training for the most part. And I think we learn as practitioners that to put kind of an armor on when talking to people about euthanasia and performing euthanasia, and even just discussing, pet loss and grief, to try to protect ourselves a little bit. But but it always affects us. Can't help not to be affected by that, because we are, by nature of what we do, we're very empathetic and compassionate people. And, I wish I would have had some training in how to handle, the grief that people and how they express it. Sometimes when you're looking at anger, it's because there's sadness below it. But if anger is directed at you, you're just trying to do your best at filtering through the emotions as they're, coming at you. And then you're dealing with your own internal struggle of, I tried everything in my tool belt on this case and it just still didn't work. And you might be hearing a client saying like, why didn't it work? And then your internal voice is giving you your own self-doubts. But ultimately it comes back to, I didn't make the pet sick. You didn't make the pet sick. I did my best to, make the pet well. And I think, as most veterinarians share this belief that I do, is that euthanasia can be one of the most challenging things in veterinary medicine, but it can also be rewarding because we have the perspective of we have this unique privilege that's given to us that most human medical practitioners are not given this tool. So we're able to actually relieve a pet's suffering when no one else could. And euthanasia can be a very dignified end. And that's the way it should be. It should be a dignified end of a beautiful life and, filled with love.
Thank you so much for all that. And that's so true the way you worded that, because I got to be with Shelby in her final moments. I got to hold her, and the staff at True Care was just wonderful, talking me through the whole thing, just because they asked me, have you been through this before? I said, no, it's my first time. I don't know what to expect. And they were walking me through, this is what's going to happen. And there was at least 2 vet techs on me at all times.
Yeah.
And they were respecting also my timeline, which I believe it's, which I feel like you were hinting at, which is, a lot of times we just want to know that we're being heard and listened to.
Yeah.
And I feel like, obviously you're a very empathetic and person, a very active listener. And it wasn't just them going through the motions of, hey, we're doing this. They were asking, are you ready now?
Yeah.
And I said, when they first asked me, it's like, well, I'll never be ready. And I even said, I understand, take your time. And they were very, very compassionate about it. But it was just in that moment, it was just, and I never thought of it before, but it just makes so much sense because you think about it. Therapists also have therapists. Mm-hmm. People who maybe is like a personal trainer, they may have their own personal trainers. Someone who's a masseuse can't give themselves a Swedish massage. At least I don't think so. If you can, then that's a very special talent, very specific and special talent. We need to lean on each other.
Yeah.
But I think we don't necessarily have that thought with veterinary medicine. And I have theories on that because, one, I think because there's so many doctor shows and we do see these humanistic elements of show, like a show like ER, The Pit.
Yeah.
Well, we do see that underneath the coats and the scrubs is a human. Mm-hmm. We don't necessarily have that for veterinarians. And that was the big reason why I wanted to bring it up, because this is a very real thing. And, doctors will have to deal with human deaths possibly every day, multiple times a day. Just like a veterinarian could have to deal with like a pet death every day, multiple times a day.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to shine a light on that. And I'm so thankful that you shared your experience, because I think if we're able to normalize that in our own psyche, then we can gain a better understanding of that it's not anybody's fault.
Right.
You do the best you can do, and that's just the results you get. Mm-hmm. But your perspective on euthanasia is so enlightening, and it's something that I thought about too, because Shelby could have easily gone in a very inconvenient way. Mm-hmm. And not that euthanasia was convenient, but if I had to choose between, if she's going to go and you can be with her and it's on your terms and she can be free of pain, 100%. Mm-hmm. As opposed to if I woke up one day and, which happens too. So, but I also just, I'd like to let everyone know, like underneath the scrubs, underneath everything, there's a human being. And I think I like those conversations being more out there for veterinarians. And my follow-up question is, because you talked about how there wasn't any sort of training or mental health protocols, like are there things being implemented and how?
Yeah. There's an initiative called Not One More Vet.
Okay.
And they've, I think now in vet school training, it is part of the curriculum.
That's great.
And yeah, and I think a lot more bigger hospital centers now actually have social workers on staff as well, which is helpful. And these are people that are professionals trained to help pet parents with pet loss. Yeah, so I think the landscape is changing and improving. But you know, it's I mean, I've been in practice for 20 years now, so it's taken a minute to get there. Yeah, but I think it's getting there.
That sounds like a great segue to this next topic I want to touch on. Because so you say you've been in veterinary medicine for about 20 years now. Let's wind the clock back, as if we're time travelers to 19. Because as far as I know, we've had like the basic tools for dog care since like the 1950s. That's when vaccines, heartworm prevention, basic nutrition really started entering the fold. And then come the 1980s. Then we have specialists, but they're still being classified as general veterinarians. Correct. And then that's what I call the kibble boom. I believe in the 80s is when the large market kibble was being marketed and distributed for dog parents. But then along comes the 2000s, genetics testing, holistic care comes into the chat, and on and on and on, and it keeps on evolving up to this day. And I want to ask you, in your 20 years, what it's been like to witness this evolution in real time. And then after that, we can talk about what we can do from here on out. But I would like to hear about what it's been like from your perspective, seeing the advances, or maybe not the advances in dog medicine.
Yeah, well, yeah, I would love for the advances to go faster in dog medicine to kind of align with human advances. Wouldn't we all? But yeah, with the advances, what I've seen, like I think of you one experience that I had when I got trained in acupuncture, because I had seen evidence in human studies. I had actually experienced it, worked on myself, and that's, you know, got me into, you know, getting the certifications that I could do it on dogs to help them as well. And I met some real resistance with a referral center in the LA area. You know, the surgeons weren't convinced that acupuncture was anything more than just woo-woo. And you know, so I got some pushback on that with some mutual patients that they were seeing and I was seeing. And, you know, so I had some phone conversations with specialists and trying to kind of like bring them online with it. And, you know, since then, that was like, maybe, I don't know, 12 years ago-ish. But since then, we have seen it become so mainstream that now veterinary insurance policies they reimburse for acupuncture, they reimburse for rehabilitation, they reimburse for a lot of adjunctive modalities that, you know, 10 years ago, that would be unheard of. So when I feel like when insurance companies start reimbursing for things, there's real evidence, you know, that's actually getting all the way to insurance companies. So that's one marker that I kind of look at for change in the industry. But yeah, these things have become much more mainstream. And then in the 2000s, we really saw this boom in anti-aging science and research. And for the past 4 or 5 years, there have been no less than 40,000 peer-reviewed research articles published each year on anti-aging science. And so you know, that gets extrapolated from whatever species that they're doing the models in those studies, that gets extrapolated and translated into different species models all the way up to many of these molecules they're looking at for anti-aging they're now in like clinical trials for humans. So we've seen such a robust boom in the science and the research, just even in the past 5 years. It's faster research, faster advancement than I think anything in research history in medicine. So it's really been exciting, but still, there are 9 times out of 10 clinicians, veterinary clinicians are not really, they don't know the science that's out there because it's not, it hasn't found its way into curriculum at vet schools yet. So there is this, slight educational gap of what's cutting edge and what's being taught in schools. So there's always going to be a lag there. But it's on us as the practitioners to continue our education and continually seek out things that we don't know.
Thank you for that. It sounds like the resources have been there, but they're really just now really being utilized to whatever potential they can be. I don't even think that's the exciting part about it. I don't think we've even really gotten to really what the full potential is in terms of dog medicine, medical care.
Oh, no, we haven't.
Which is incredible to think for future generations. I do think more people are going to have dogs than children. And even though I do consider dogs as their children, but I mean, like human babies, I think that rate may go down. And I think more people are going to get dogs. Yeah. And so seeing that advancement, but also you're highlighting something that I think is really important, is that these resources have technically been available, from your perspective, from the last 20 years, and even in the 1980s when they started uncovering specialist vets. But the awareness of that was very lacking for dog parents like myself. When I was trying to research stuff for Shelby, it's like I had to Frankenstein together and ask like multiple sources, and you also have to know where to look. You have to know who to ask. So it seems like there's a bit of like an educational gap, and I think it's working both ways for veterinarians, because you just touched on how it's not taught in school. And it's just like if you're a film student, there's certain things you won't learn in film school. You have to just be on set and then try new things and innovate. But also for dog parents, I think a lot of times we surrender to what the mainstream narrative is and think that that's the only way. And again, we're not dismissing Western medicine. That should, I feel like, is a solid foundation. But there's always ways you can customize it to what's best for your companion, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that even though veterinary medicine lags behind human medicine, it's kind of a good thing in this instance, because human medicine, there is really this drive right now, especially in longevity medicine. So pet parents are seeking these other answers out for themselves. And then now, we actually have been able to extrapolate some human stuff into dogs and vice versa. So it's actually beneficial for both species. So I think some of the human medicine is kind of driving veterinary medicine to advance the same way in longevity medicine. But, that education gap that you're speaking about, I mean, it's real. It's really difficult because we're in transition right now. I hope this is my goal. We're in transition from a very conventional medical model into a more holistic, longevity-based model. So we're transitioning from a model that's very disease-oriented, focused on symptoms and diagnosis and treatment of disease, and hopefully transitioning into a more, proactive model where we're seeking out the root causes of things before it even advances to disease phase. So the benefit of conventional medicine is it's institutional, it's centralized. We know exactly where to go to get it. We know who's going to answer our questions. But if it's anything that falls outside of that, like what you experienced with Shelby, it sounds like you did seek out all the other, adjunctive.
We did stem cell treatment too. We read kidneys. We tried everything. Yeah.
Yeah. But, wouldn't it be nice if there were like a central place that you could go and find all the answers all at one time, right? And maybe not have to do all of that extra research. And, it's kind of the same for veterinarians right now. We have to do extra research to try to find other tools that we weren't given during our medical degrees. And so we're kind of in transition. So looks a little messy, I think, but we're going towards this goal of trying to improve upon health span, trying to optimize pets' quality of health or quality of life and health, and seeking out, root sources of things with an integrative approach and a holistic lens, so that we can, see things before they actually show up on lab work. And in human medicine right now, longevity and wellness clinics are actually doing pretty well with their advancements. I mean, they're down to omics data for their patients. So they can find, like DNA and, proteins and even metabolomics that help give them a very clear picture of like what aspect of longevity medicine would be most effective for this particular patient. Very individualized holistic care. We don't have that yet for dogs, but that's what I would love to see. And that's what I envision the future of veterinary medicine within the next 20 years.
I love that. Really quick for people who aren't familiar with the lingo omics. So what it just...
Omics is like it's like genomics. It's like a huge subset of data. So it can look at your entire genome, right?
Okay.
Or proteomics is like all of the proteins that you produce. And metabolomics is all of the metabolites that your body produces, which are all very individualized. So the same thing that might work for me might not work for you.
Yes.
But in a conventional model, if we had the same condition, we would be treated with the same thing. So in this more proactive model, we might be treated with two different things for the same condition.
Which is like where we should be getting ourselves to, and especially with dog medicine, because it can be very unilateral in terms of what's the plan of attack to attack. Again, this goes back to what we talked about earlier. Let's try to find the cause as opposed to trying to treat the symptom.
Yeah.
And real quick, I want to say, you talked about how let's have a centralized source. I may have a side project I'm working on, which we'll talk about when we're done here. Yeah, we'll talk.
Yes,
and people wonder what that is. You're touching on we're touching on so many important points, but I'm going to use this analogy, which will segue into what the next topic I want to talk about, which is, you shouldn't wait till you have a cavity to go to the dentist. Right. I think that's what people have in mind, or they don't wait until you're type 2 diabetic before you maybe get on a healthy diet and get on a healthy exercise regime. But I think it's a matter of shifting our mindset and really applying that as dog parents to our dogs. It's for whatever reason not there. We have the education gap, but I think it's a mindset gap, or it's almost like we need to give ourselves like leeway to do so, or someone needs to say it's okay to think that way, because I never felt that restriction. I said, well, if this works for me and these proactive measures were for me and I'm getting ahead of certain things, why wouldn't I do that for literally my child here?
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting when I have conversations with clients, it starts one of two ways. Either my client is already doing these proactive measures for themselves and they ask me what's available for dogs, or I'm telling them what's available for their dog. And in the process of that discussion, they're saying, can I be doing this for myself too? And yeah, absolutely. So.
Which ties into the whole notion of, because people need to hear this information, other dog parents, and go, well, what can we do? And I think you touched on one of the most important things is ask those questions.
Yeah.
To ask someone like yourself, okay, what can I do? Because it sounds like this broad example you gave is very, very helpful. And I think people need to know, dog parents should know that there are resources. It's just a matter of ask that question.
Yeah.
And asking you shall receive, hopefully.
Right. Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. But, when people come to me with that question, like, how can I be more proactive about my pet? And I say, and you can do this yourself too. So the main things that I start with are lifestyle factors, because without good lifestyle factors, that's your foundation. And without that, you could supplement You can take 90 things a day. It's not going to help you, might hurt you. You have to have that foundation. Your house is not going to stand for very long if you don't have a firm foundation, no matter how pretty the siding is. So your foundation is, two of the most important things are diet and exercise. I know that's the oldest adage there is, but it is so backed by science. Diet, I classify into two categories, the two Qs, quantity and quality. So first and foremost, I make sure that dog is on a good quality food. And that would be something that is not processed, so high in carbohydrates and filler agents, which are going to add to the chronic inflammation, which is going to develop into a disease down the road. And it needs to be, real foods, balanced, and a robust diet that has some variety in it to feed the microbiome. And then the second Q, quantity. So food is not love. And so making sure that you're not overfeeding, you're keeping that dog lean. And, we can do two different things. You can do caloric restriction diets, or you can do intermittent fasting. Dog Aging Project has actually done some really cool retrospective studies looking at their huge, 45,000 dog database. And they've seen that once daily feeding is actually really protective against several diseases. So, just start off with diet and then exercise. And so that varies. Like the patients I see, some of them I'm seeing them later in life. So we can't just do sprinting workouts, things like that. So we have to, adjust that per patient. But, same thing for us. We got to do a little bit of endurance cardio, and we've got to do a little bit of strengthening. And those two forms of exercise are going to really help with, maintaining longevity and decrease frailty. And then once we have that foundation built, there's a few other things. But once we have those major things built, then depending on the life stage of the dog, then I say, okay, now it's time that we can start actually adding in some supplements and evidence-based supplements.
Yes.
And so first and foremost, I want to make sure a supplement is going to be, safety is number one and efficacious. And I want to see that there's some data, because right now, if you look at, I think last time I did the research on it, I think it's like a $3 billion industry or something, longevity products. And so there's a lot of advertising that gets thrown at us for ourselves and also as pet parents for our pets. We have to make sure that we're just not buying, stuff that could potentially hurt our pets, right? So we have to do some, quality assurance and quality control checks on it too, so the one product that I really am so intrigued by since it came out on the market is leap years.
That's how we met.
That's how
was leap years, yeah.
Right.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, and real quick, what everything you're saying there, I think, is an important touchstone as well, because caring for your dog is also caring for yourself. It's a very symbiotic relationship. So if you're taking care of your own health, you can take care of their health, and just I call it the oxygen mask analogy. Just like in airplanes, they say, get your mask first before you can help others, which as a kid, I didn't understand. No, I'm going to help my family,
right,
and I'll be fine, which I had to unwrap a lot of that in therapy. It's a whole other conversation. But when you take care of yourself, you can care for others.
Right.
And that's the part of the special bond with dogs, is that you are bonded, and it is this symbiotic relationship. So you taking care of the dog is also taking care of you, and vice versa.
Right.
So we always have to remember that's a cyclical source. But now let's go back to leap years, because that is how we connected. And I had Shelby on leap years, even though she was 4 going on 5 at the time. So very young, congenital kidney condition, which I didn't give her leap years in the hopes that this was going to be a miracle cure for her kidney condition.
Right.
But my philosophy was, if I can support the rest of her body, that can keep her strong, despite the fact that what's happening with their kidneys, unfortunately, was going to be inevitable. That was the harsh truth of the matter.
Yeah.
But I would love for you to talk more about leap years, because you have more clinical expertise on it. And I can help couple that with some of my stories. But I'm so glad you brought that up, because again, that's why we're here. That's why.
Yeah. exactly. And, with Shelby, she had this congenital condition that was organ specific. And so you have to back up stepwise, right? So her organs were already diseased. If you step that back to the tissues, then the cells, the leap years is actually designed at the cellular level. It's a molecule that's going to help at the cellular level. And it works best if you can do it before there's cellular tissue and, organ disease, right? And so that's the whole, the objective of leap years is to maintain cellular health. So I don't think they make any claims of, anti-aging or, reverse cellular health. It's all about maintaining and supporting your own aging process. And so these molecules that are in leap years, it has two unique things in them that is different from anything else on the market right now. So there's an NAD precursor in it, and there's a senolytic. And what these two things do, they both target our cellular health in different mechanisms, and they work synergistically. So to take you through kind of a day in the life of a cell.
Please. I love this.
So our cells are constantly cycling, and so they are going through these different phases of the cell cycle in a 24-hour period. And there are a couple checkpoints during this cycle. And at these checkpoints, you can think of maybe officers checking in to make sure they're doing things right. And if they're not doing things right, they arrested. So if this cell is not reproducing correctly, it's going to get arrested. So the things that are going to make the cell not, reproduce correctly is going to be genomic instability, which is one of the main hallmarks of aging. And that's from constantly every day we're subjected to UV radiation, right? Or pollution or intrinsic factors like stress, poor sleep, or something inflammatory. And so all those factors making the cell not be able to, look right or do things right, and it's going to get arrested. So the NAD booster that's in the leap years is actually helping the cell to repair its own mistakes. So the NAD is this molecule that our cells are always supposed to be producing, but as we age, we decline. The production of NAD declines. And NAD boosters help us to bring that level of NAD back up to where it should be, so that it can trigger the longevity genes to do their work of repairing that DNA and keeping that cell healthy. So one of the other things that happens is if the cell doesn't have that going on and it stays in the arrested state, it can become senescent. And then during the aging process, our body gets worse and worse at clearing out those arrested cells, those senescent cells. Those senescent cells begin to accumulate. When they overaccumulate, one or two of them start turning into zombies. And zombie cells get their name because they're spitting out these inflammatory agents that actually act on neighboring cells and turn other cells into zombies too. And so these cells just are bad actors, basically. They have ceased to do anything really productive for the body, except for sometimes they have a role in wound healing and some other things. But for the most part, they're driving our inflammation, which is also tanking our NAD levels. So you can start to see the synergism, right? So the senolytic that's in the leap years, which is 2 days out of every month, you're giving those chews that have the senolytics, that is going in and actually wiping out the zombie cells. So clearing us out, giving us less inflammation, and allowing our own NAD levels to elevate, in addition to giving us NAD booster to help those even further.
So it's almost like the two initial, it's almost like getting a good oil change for the car and then putting the good gasoline in.
Right. Yeah. Yes, that's a great analogy. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I get. So, because now people hear NAD has become a big thing with humans.
Yeah.
I even take liquid NAD with my water every day. It's like a sort of, that's my nightcap, because I don't do anything else other than drink water, but sometimes I throw some NAD in there.
Right.
So it just goes to reinforce what you're saying about this synergistic energy that we have with our dogs, is that the things that can work for us can work for them.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of shifting our mindset to understanding that that's a possibility. And that's what just always made sense to me. It's like, if I can be proactive and go to a dentist and get cleanings, then why can't I do something in that sense for my dog's health?
Right.
And the answer to that is you can. It's just, honestly, free will. I don't want to get into it. We won't get into that today, but the resources are there. And I do want to point out that Dr. Heather and I happen to have met through leap years, and I happen to have been somebody who avidly used it for my dog. We're not here to this isn't an infomercial in disguise or anything like that. So I just want to make sure that's out there. It's just, we're talking about the science behind it. And also, I believe one quality of it that's really important that I want to touch on is bioavailability. Which that's a big thing in terms of humans taking supplements too.
Yes.
Because you can take something that maybe this is the best supplement on the market to do this, but if your body doesn't absorb it, you're just wasting $50 on pills.
Yeah.
Pretty much, right?
Exactly. You have an expensive toilet flush.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had a few of those. Unfortunately, I had a GNC Gold card, and you know what? They got a lot of my money over the years.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I really like about leap years, that this company has devoted a lot of time. They've invested time and money into these research projects on their product to prove its bioavailability. So they did some pharmacokinetic studies to study how well the product made its way into the bloodstream. And they found that it is very bioavailable. The form that they're using is, somewhat superior in terms of what's available to even like some humans. So they've got really good data on that. They also have safety data. So they've treated, over 65 dogs in a clinical study for 6 months and didn't see any significant adverse events. They even took a subset of dogs and treated them with 10 to 30 times the dose just to make sure it wasn't going to give adverse events for a couple of weeks, and it didn't. So we know it's safe. They did some efficacy looking at activity levels, and it did seem to improve the dog's activity. And they even put it through a clinical trial, a double-blinded placebo-controlled trial at NC State University College of Veterinary Medicine. So that study was led by a group of vets, and they looked at least 65 dogs over the age of 10 who all started out with a little bit of cognitive decline, and that was objectively graded. So they knew where the dogs were starting. And then through this study, within about 3 months, they saw that a significant portion of these dogs who were on the product actually did have either stabilization or slowing of their cognitive decline, which is huge. We don't really have anything great out there to help with cognitive decline prior to this. So not saying that it's going to treat it, but if we have something that could help our dogs to re-engage better, have a little bit better cognitive function, and that's going to show up as, potentially less anxiety, more engagement, more interest in the activities that they used to have interest in. And it's going to show up also to pet parents. It's going to make dogs look happier. Some of these dogs started having Zoom meets again after TIT. So in my opinion, if I have a product that I know is safe and it does no harm, I'm going to try it. And in the ones that I've tried it, I've seen really positive effects.
And those positive effects reflect back on the dog parent.
Yeah.
As we see. Because, there's that age-old saying, happy wife, happy life. I think happy dog, just happy human.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
Because when I knew that Shelby was good, I was like, those were my best days.
Yeah.
Even when she wasn't, they were still my best days because we still had each other's company. And so that, and also what you touched on, which I don't think either of us had the authority to go deep into it because we would have to probably bring in the actual leap years people who are wonderful people. But those clinical trials, that's not a normal protocol in terms of supplementation, correct? So they actually did the due diligence on their end, and I can't go.
You mean the safety trial?
The safety trials and everything.
Yeah.
So the fact
and a good responsible company is going to do that.
Yeah.
That's what we don't know about many of the other products that are out there. Yeah.
So, but we do know that about leap years.
Yeah.
And I know what I saw in terms of how it supported her body. And I had her on CBD tinctures and everything like that. And I had her on the renal diet from Just Food for Dogs. And again, we visit specialists every single month to check her creatinine and BUN levels and everything like that.
Right.
But it was like, what pieces of the puzzle can I put in here just to give her what we call her bonus life?
Yeah.
Is there anything you can share with any of our viewers and listeners so that we can really help them be proactive, like we've been talking about through our chat?
Yeah, I think the brew is a really great resource. She's got a ton of really, really informational podcasts that you can look at. And also everything on her website has been really hand curated and chosen with a very selective lens. In addition to that, I think the AHVMA website, it's the American Holistic Veterinary Medical Association website, that can be a really good resource for pet parents because not only do they list resources, you can also actually read journals. These are peer-reviewed journal articles about holistic vet medicine, and also you can find a holistic practitioner on their website. And so you can find some acupuncturists and rehabbers on the AHVMA website. Also, if you're looking, if they don't have person in your area, you might want to check the Chi Institute, which is tcvm.com. They've got to find a practitioner in your area. And then CRI, which is Canine Rehab Institute.com. They've also got to find find a practitioner in your area tool that you can use. So there are some, resources and tools that pet parents can have to find people. Like if their conventional vet doesn't have the answers that you're seeking, these are some resources that you could go to find someone who may have an answer for you.
Fantastic. And also leapyears.com, if anybody's curiosity has been piqued about us talking about the science behind it, our own personal experiences, both from a veterinary standpoint and also from a dog parent standpoint, it's just leapyears.com. They made it very simple for you to find them. But also Dr. Heather Oxford, by the way, incredible name. Like you got the name of like a Marvel superhero, and you are a superhero yourself.
Okay. Well, thanks.
Yeah. Where can people find you? And because I'm sure people may want to reach out for questions, or they want to become one of your clients. So where can they find you?
Sure. They can find me at my name, heatheroxford.com. I kept it simple too.
It's all kismet here. I love that.
Yep.
Well, Dr. Heather, this has been incredible. I think this is one small part of a much larger conversation, not just between you and myself, because I do think we have a lot more to talk about. But I think just overall, in terms of normalizing these conversations for dog parents and being proactive about your dog's health. And it always has to start somewhere. And I'm just very honored that it started here with you.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's been my pleasure, John. I could talk about this for hours and days. So looking forward to your next developments.
We'll be talking soon.
Cool.